Hey, welcome back to another awesome, incredible, fabulous story. This is Narrative Live, and we have Keith. Keith and I have actually shared the stage together. I've been on his podcast. We've actually gone back and forth a couple of different times on sharing information. Keith, you contacted me about Lego, and then I talked to you about some of your VA stuff that you were setting up. I mean, you got an incredible, incredible story. And I think we've met, man, I'm thinking back, it's probably been 4 or 5 years ago, back AGS days with Josh Latimer. We were over in Ludington, I think is the very first time that we met. And so we had some great conversations there. We've had them since then at different locations. So I am super, super grateful that you're here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Bro, what's up? Tim Kroll. Thanks for having me on your show, man.
Yeah, no worries at all on that. Again, I mean, this is really, and I say this every time, but we break this down and we really want to hear about your story. We want to hear about not necessarily all of the highlights, which is what we see. And I know that you've accomplished some incredible things, but I want to hear about the hard knocks. Like, what was the journey like? What was the bend in the road that Keith had to go through to become who he is? Because I know just from my own experience, it's not all sunshine and roses. I mean, there's definitely sweat, there's a little bit of blood in there, sometimes there's tears in there, and it's a breakdown sometimes. So we want to hear about that. So let's get started. What was Keith like as a kid growing up? What was your, that formative stage? What was that like for Keith?
For sure. Totally. Just real quick. I'm Keith Kalfas. I have a landscaping business and a social media marketing business. So we have two six-figure businesses. I have like 4 employees in the landscape business, but I just hired my 17th virtual assistant in the internet business. And I love it. I'm hustling. We're making videos all over the internet. And it's like, been a long journey. So, but it wasn't always this way. I mean, literally back about 2011, I was stuck in a 1-bedroom apartment with my wife, getting eviction notices with debt collectors calling me. Before that, I had lived in 32 homes. This is my 32nd home. I've had like 36 jobs. I've been fired from a ton of jobs, and all the way back down to when I was a kid, moved around constantly. I think I counted like 14 different schools that I went to.
Wow.
We even lived in a car with my mom just briefly. We almost got taken away by the state. And we two different homeless shelters for a couple of weeks at a time for battered and abused women. My mom, some stuff she went through, and then what else? Yeah,
Well,
just all over the place. And then
that
eventually,
alone, I mean, let's just get started with that. I mean, just that idea, that constant having to move, and like you said, there's multiple homes that you've been in. What kind of belief did that form in your mind? Like, what kind of an impression, whether it's your confidence, the belief of who you are, the value that you have, like what kind of an impression did that leave on you as a child?
yeah, truthfully, there was no. I was just in peak state. I was totally fine because my mother loved me, right?
Mm.
And even though there was chaos and I witnessed her under like being stressed out all the time or being what we call manic, which you don't know when you're a kid, when you're in your formative years, but then it kind of shapes and forms. So you might behave in a manic state or not a completely present, calm state to come based off of what you had witnessed and seen growing up. Like you learn how to act, this type of learned behavior, we call it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was like maybe a late teenager, we had moved again, and I had gosh, I got to live one place for about 4 years in elementary school, early junior high, and that's where I got to meet all of my friends and everything. It's a place called Sterling Heights, Michigan, and I always wanted to go back to that place, and that's where I have a house right now. I always wanted to come back, what I called home, and got a
Mm.
place next down the street and over and across. There's these what we call projects. They're really just apartments, but it's like low income housing right in the middle of like the city. And I used to live there, and my mom uprooted me again because she got approved for what we call Section 8 housing. And I was like, what do you mean? We're moving again? She's like, we're moving. We're getting out of this crummy little apartment. And I didn't want to move. I was severely upset and went into depression when we moved. There I was, another school again. And this time it was in a not so good of an area. And so, yeah, I ran away when I was like, I think 14 going on 15. And then I couch surfed. By the time I was 17, I lied on I don't know how I was able to do this, but I was able to get into my own apartment before I was even 18. And I had my own apartment at 18. I was working 4 jobs. I was doing landscaping all day. I was doing roofing on the weekends. And then I was working as a bar back in these like nightclubs, just stocking beer bottles and stuff. And because that's the only place I could find was I would work at night from like, 8 p.m. to like 3 a.m. Go home, I'd crash in my apartment for, I don't know, 3 hours and get up and run in landscaping all day. And by the time I was, I think like 21, so I had so much responsibility at such a young age that right around the age of 21, I had kind of like a nervous breakdown. I didn't get to experience having any fun at all. And so,
Well, can we back up? I want to hear about
yeah,
the nervous
sorry.
break. I want to hear about the nervous breakdown thing, but like it sounds like, especially the way that you were living, and this is, I mean, really, we want to help and support people and understand some of those pieces and parts. But like when you stepped out on your own, did you feel obligated that you had to do that because you were a burden on your mom? Did you feel like it was a rebellious stage? Like why? What was the thought process going on? You know, like,
Absolutely.
dude, I'm done.
This is very vulnerable. So I
Yeah,
don't ever
and
talk about it this way, but I think it's important to share. So, cause I love my mom and I could cry. My mom, unfortunately passed away from an overdose. She did crack and heroin at the same time. And she
mm,
had some type of a seizure. And I just found out actually last year how she actually died is I think she hit her head very hard and went into some type of coma. And my little
mm,
sister found her dead. So I was
mm.
26, but, sorry, that train of thought oh yeah, this is why I kind of ran away, and I had a lot of regret because I had my older sister had left at 11 to go live with our grandmother because it was a very unstable our house, I guess, and she didn't feel wanted or anything. And because my mom had like different boyfriends and stuff, I have two sisters, and I love my sisters more than anything else. And we're actually the people I love the most are my wife, and then my two sisters is like the most important people to me. But it was just me and my little sister, and I felt horrible because I left and I should have stayed there and took care of my little sister. I was working in like two part-time jobs at like 13 and 14 years old. And I should have kept food in the fridge and milk in the fridge and cooked dinner and did all these things. And I was too young. I was thinking about myself and I left. And um anyways, I had told my sister since then, she's like 33 now and married and has kids of her own. She's not even mad at me or anything, but I left because my mom was like, I don't know, there was no connection at all. She was in total like depression and hooked on like prescription pills and stuff. It's kind of funny, the rapper Eminem, we had a house in Southeast Warren, like literally right around the corner from him, and his stories and how he rapped and the things of how he grew up was similar to the way I grew up. Literally same exact neighborhood. We went to
Yeah.
the same school and same problems, the same type of stuff. So I actually got really into his music, which probably wasn't a good thing when I was a teenager, because and so did all these other kids across America, like speaking my language. But that's funny. Um, but I had never cussed at my mother. I had never disrespected my parents. And one day she came home again at like 3:30 in the morning, falling all over now, first of all, my mom was someone of unconditional love. She groomed dogs. She could like the dog whisperer. She can get any crazy dog to calm down. She would take in any stray animal. She would I mean, I could go up and hug my mother at any time and she would hug me unconditionally. And she tucked me in and sang to me and put me to bed. She would protect me at all costs. She taught me morals and values and lessons that have stuck with me and will stick with me my entire life, about honesty and about um, um, just a very nurturing, amazing human. And anyways, wow, I've talked about all of this, and for some reason, it's coming out in a very vulnerable way.
Uh,
I'll tell you
this
one
is
thing.
this is how you connect, Keith, and I'm very, very grateful because as you connect on this level, I guarantee you people listening, they've been through it, you know, and they're going to hear and they're going to connect with you because they're going to at a stage they're going to be like, that was my life, just like you said with Eminem. The reason why you connected with, because it was such similar backgrounds and similar areas. So no,
Mhm.
I'm very grateful for you doing this. And as you look at that, then, you know, to the question that you were saying is like, why that, why that abrupt, like, hey, I'm done. And,
Yeah.
you know, like you
So
said,
she came home again at like 3:30 in the morning. And I think it was that different boyfriends of hers were, I'm 14, I'm 14 years old, and I'm really finding my own, and I'm outside cutting the grass and I'm running track and trying to make my way in the world as a kid. And some of these different boyfriends of hers would start talking to me as though they're like going to be my fucking stepdad. And I just didn't like that. And I was very upset how my mom wasn't handling anything. Like, even though I was a kid, like the dishes were piled up to the ceiling. There was no laundry done. The bed sheets weren't changed. And I don't know why I didn't do all that. I'm a grown ass man now. I would have done all that shit and paid the bills and did everything. But there's a huge sense of disconnection. And one day I got in an argument with her and I said, fuck you. And I've never spoke to my mother like that. And I felt horrible immediately after I said it. And then I left and I went and stayed at a cousin's house. And then I just kind of bounced around until I was 17. And I didn't talk to my mom that much, even though I loved her. But then we got back close again. But then it was really hard because she was on drugs all the time and slurring her speech. And so
So
yeah,
all
but
of that responsibility, everything that you had kind of just piled up and piled up. And so then as we fast forward, and this is what you're going to start talking about there, approximately, I think you said 21, 22. It sounds like a lot of that responsibility just kind of hit a tipping point. And you said something about the fact that you were going to be, you were coming close to that nervous breakdown. If you want to share, was that the catalyst that made you really evaluate where you were at?
my average work week I was counting was at 94 hours of actual work, right? And so after running on adrenaline like that for so long, it was 9/11 hit in 2001 and everything was bone dry. I couldn't find work. Everything had dried up. And all of a sudden I think I was 18 or 19 and I couldn't pay my bills. And I got an eviction notice at this apartment that I had. And I crunched all the math and I knew that at that time period, I didn't have the resources, right? So I remember laying on that apartment floor by myself, feeling like a total failure and just having to accept it. And then I went and slept in my truck. I think I slept in my truck for like a week. And then a friend found out about it and it kind of forced me to sleep in their basement. So then I slept in the basement.
And that's a positive thing. It sounds like it was a positive thing that they forced you to sleep in their basement. That's
Yeah.
not a negative.
Yeah. And I felt, I mean, being now, I think 19 years old, I was working at Home Depot at night and still landscaping all day. God, people that work in Lowe's and Home Depot, when you're walking on that concrete all day, it kills your back. But
Yeah.
anyways, I then an old friend has like, bro, we can get a trailer together and they're cheap. It's this old ratty trailer in this trailer park for like $3,000. I was like, what? So I was able to save up half of it and I gave it to him in cash and boom. And now I had a trailer and a roommate and there I was. So I took over reins. I became a foreman of this landscape. By the time I was 18, I was running a lawn care company, like doing the operations. I was doing the hiring and the firing and pulling a 24-foot trailer. And just doing everything while the owner of the company was just kind of like doing the sales and marketing. And that was a great, phenomenal experience for me to only be that age and have that amount of responsibility. And I learned a lot. And then I was making actually pretty decent money for the first time ever. I was fully self-sustainable, having my own place again, paying all my bills. And then I fell into network marketing, MLM, they call it, multi-level marketing. Here in Michigan, there's something called, it was called, well, Amway, this company called Quick Start. And then there was these little micro companies and one grew to like 100,000 people. It was called Team of Destiny, bro. So I'm working at that Home Depot place one day and I'm just exhausted. I'm sunburned. My self-esteem is in the toilet. I'm trying to get my own place. It was right before I got the trailer. And I met this dude that worked there. His name was Chris Taylor. I didn't know him at the time, but he worked there too. But he would come around. I worked in the lumber department. And he would come and start chit-chatting with me. And I'm like, why is this guy trying to talk to me? He's a little weird. What's going on here? And he kept talking with me and everything he said makes sense. And I was like, he's like, hey man, he's asking me success questions. And I'm like, well, of course I want to be successful. He's like, you want to hang out and let's go to Steak and Shake. I think they're shutting down. Let's grab a Coke, man. I'm like, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't know you, bro. He's like, dude, trust me. And I didn't know like what his intentions were, but he was really cool. And I was like, all right, dude. He's like, dude, trust me, it'll be worth your time. And I was kind of freaked out, but I was like, all right, I'm just going to go in real quick, see if there is an opportunity. I sat down across from this dude. He was the coolest dude I ever met. He handed me one book and 2 tapes. So I'm landscaping all day. I come home, he hands me this book called Parable of the Pipeline by Burke Hedges. And I think he gave me another book. It was Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant. Bro, I read the whole book cover to cover, sitting in front of the window with the sun shining nonstop. I think I read it in like 5 hours. He gave me this tape called The Dash, these motivational tapes, and this other book about the business, right? I didn't know it was tape of the week, book of the month, and this was all set up. I went and I met him again. He gave me 2 more tapes and another. I'm like, bro, more tapes. He's like, well, actually, did you hear the guy on the tape? I'm like, well, yeah, his name was Chris Brady. And the other guy was Orrin Woodward. He's like, I can introduce you to those guys Tuesday night. I'm like, you can? Dude, that guy was like a millionaire. He's like, Tuesday night, you got to get to Grand Blanc, Michigan. I'm like, that's like an hour and 15 minutes away, bro. He's like, well, if you want to meet him, the guy's a millionaire and he's going to be on stage teaching success. I'm like, I'm there. Bro, I figured out how to get there. So I was front row. There's probably like 250 people. The Chris Brady guy, who's the millionaire, you know, they would call it, people call it like a pyramid scam, but it wasn't at all. Network marketing. He comes out, he was making everybody laugh, and him and his wife were like totally rich, and they built this whole side business on the internet. And from that moment on, I was like, dude, I don't care. I signed up that night. I was like, I'm in. Dude, I got my debit card out. I paid. I got the books, the tapes, the CDs. And then from that point, I was landscaping all day. And then coming home, I used to wear earrings and I had a cool like labret piercing. I thought it was cool. I had a little diamond in my chin, and I had spiky hair, and I used to wear like silver like bracelet and necklace. And I just wanted to be like some pop star. That's like, I just wanted to fit in, right? That was me,
Yeah.
but it wasn't my own unique style. I don't know. So, but dude, I wanted money and success so bad that I took out the earrings and the little piercing, and I shaved, and I went to the thrift store because I was broke, and I bought like a blue suit, white shirt, red tie, blue suit, white shirt, red tie, black shoes. And I ordered all the stuff, and I made my dream 100 list. So here I was, Keith Kalfas, 2002. Bro, all my friends from middle school, I was like, let me talk to your parents. I'll call them up. Why do you want to talk to my parents? Just put them on the phone. Hey, Mr. Hawkinson, this is Keith Kalfas. I'm friends with David, but I got to talk to you. What if blah, blah, blah. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm about to retire. I'm like, dude, I got to come over your house Wednesday night, 6 p.m. I got to show you the plan.
I love this because what it shows is the huge bend. I mean, because you're going and you're like, okay, I believe that I just have to work these dead end jobs, these 9 to 5s, and all of a sudden, this guy that you're working with at Home Depot all of a sudden just kind of opens up this whole new world, and you're just like, I'm loving this new world. It's like that a whole new perspective. It's so cool.
So that time period, dude, I was showing everybody the plan everywhere. I learned about contacting, and my wife was actually freaked out when she met me. Like, well, we met back then way a long time ago, but then we met again and fell in love and got married. And she's like, she always thought it was weird how I'm not afraid to talk to anybody anywhere in public. I could strike a conversation with anybody, and within literally 2 minutes, completely genuinely get people to completely open up and be talking and laughing and sharing things. And like, I just believe I had that spirit about me, but
Yeah.
all this comes from like hundreds of hours of training of network marketing.
Can I add to that too? Because
Yeah.
I truly believe this, because it really, really, truly comes not just from all that training, but it also comes from the fact that you had to learn very quickly at a young age how to take responsibility and read the room. And I know a lot of individuals that have gone through some of that trauma, like and I say trauma because it's, you had to move and you had to go, but that taught you very quickly how to read people, how to actually be able to understand the emotion, the EQ that's going on in the room. So that negative aspect actually has turned into what this positive, which is what you're using right now.
Yeah. The third book that they gave us was Personality Plus by Florence Latour. So the first one is Parable to Pipeline by Burke Hedges. They talk about how you got to build pipelines of income versus carrying buckets of water. So you build residual income so you can grow wealth. The next book was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. The ESBI talks about how employees and self-employed people are stuck in a time for money trap, and how the business owner and I-type investor builds systems, and then the systems flow passive cash flow that pays for their lifestyle. And then the next book was Florence Latour's Personality Plus, and I learned about the personality types as choleric, sanguine, melancholy, and phlegmatic. So it taught us how to identify, and then what we do is we'd make these lists of people and call them and document and track it all. And then I would hear these crazy stories about the old Amway millionaires like Casey Comden and Randy Haugen and all these different people. These people, like some of these people I'm talking about right now, their lessons have actually translated into what's happening in our businesses right now. Like,
yeah, that's what, let's talk about that, because all of that stuff, that was the bend, right? That was the shift that you had in your mind. And now, as far as like moving forward, let's kind of transition into that. How did you take and I'll call it the trauma of the childhood. I mean, I know your mom loved you, and I want to respect that in every way possible. But then you went through this kind of learning phase, and it was almost like a college education that you got from multi-level marketing. And now you're stepping in, like you said at the very beginning, you own two businesses, they're six figures, but yet you had to go through all of that to get to where you're at.
right.
So how does all of that now play into who you are and the narrative that you are working on today, of you yourself?
Yeah, this is actually the really hard part. If you read like the Hero's Two Journeys and Joseph Campbell and all this stuff, like, and this is how it happened. I thought of those moments when I was wearing that suit and tie, I for sure was going to be a millionaire, and I wasn't getting any results. I wasn't mature enough. I didn't know how to persuade people. Nobody believed me. I was this 19-year-old kid trying to tell people, like, it wasn't calibrated. I was going to the dollar store buying big ass the big construction paper and markers, and I was taking success quotes from like Zig Ziglar, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Tony Robbins, and writing success quotes. Like, I went manic, and I was putting them all over the walls in my trailer, that the parts that were like mine, and waking up and reading them and doing incantations and listening to Tony Robbins' Personal Power. I'm talking like I was burning out batteries after batteries on cassette tapes and then when the CD player can't batteries, like full time, like it was a monthly expense was batteries. I had brainwashed myself so much, and I was reading books. Everything was about success constantly, to the point where I didn't even want to hang out with any friends. I still am that way. It's like, and because I wasn't having any success, now I was trying to get around the leaders. I was going to the big conventions. I was driving all over this part of the country, doing everything I could and clenching my fists. And what happened was I had gotten in a fight with that roommate. We didn't click. He wanted his brother to move in, and one day he was like, "Bro, I want you out of here. You're gone." And I still to this day don't even know what I did. I don't even care. And now I went from there to sleeping in my car for 3.5 months. So in the middle of the summer, so I'm landscaping all day.
Mm.
And because I was driving that car all over the place, so showing the plant, I think I did the math. I got to make a video about this. I've had something like 28 vehicles.
Mm.
Like, I'd save up just enough money to get a car, and, then the motor would blow up. And then I would get another car, the motor would blow up. Then I'd get another car, the transmission would blow up. Then another car, the ball joints in the transmission, and then like the drive shaft would fall off, and the U joints and the whole rear end would, like, just piece of crap cars. I never talk about my father ever. My father said something to me one time. I think it was like on my 14th car. I'm going back, like right now in psychological time, as if I was young again. It's like taking over me. It's important. He's like, all the money that you spent on those piece of crap cars, you could have just got one brand new car. And that was like the moment. I don't know. I still get pissed. I'm like, yeah, if I had the fucking money, I would have done it. It's like you're constantly on the edge. So I'm sleeping in my car. And then I had another friend knew I was sleeping in my car 3.5 months. And I was actually showering and using the bathroom at the gym. And I think I was either washing my clothes in the sink there or at a laundromat. And then they kind of forced me to come live with them for a little while. And when I lived with them, I had tried so hard for so long, and I didn't have any foundation. I didn't have any support system. I was my own support system. That something inside of me, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was 2004. That last straw broke, and I fell apart. And I had given it everything, and I was running on adrenaline for 5 years straight. And I totally fucking fell apart, man. It was I think I was like 21 at that point. And I was on the phone with my older sister. She's a music teacher, a jazz musician, a vocalist, a master's degree. She's a beautiful human being. And she could hear it in my voice. This was like nervous breakdown mode. She's like, she had went to live with my grandma, and she grew up and moved on. And my grandma actually just died a couple of months ago. It was a very beautiful funeral. But she said, grandma has an extra bedroom upstairs in the condo. Would you like me to see if you can come live with her and pay her cheap rent? I was like, that'd be impossible, but yeah, it's worth a shot. So she called me right back in 10 minutes. It says, grandma says yes, she's got the room and she would love to have you come. Now, when I talked about my mother, my grandma, same way, unconditional love. At 21 years old, my little bit of belongings, I went and I'd stayed with my grandmother. And I went back to my mom's house. I'm like, Mom, I'm not homeless anymore. I got a place to live. I had put all my stuff in my mom's garage, and she had let all of these like drug addicts and alcoholics just go into the garage and take all my stuff. There was literally nothing left. Like all my clothes, furniture, belongings, except for because I only had enough that could fit in my car I was sleeping in. I was like, whatever. So when I went to live with my grandmother, I woke up the next morning, the sun was shining, and I was so weak that I had given up. I couldn't be the foreman at that landscape position anymore. I had literally just infarctated, and I went into this depression where I just laid in bed for like 2 weeks, and I felt safe, like I was in a nest again, like I was like home. It was fucking amazing, dude. I got unemployment, and for like 3 months, I'm like running in the sun and working out and like as little responsibility as possible. And I get really into music and like doing music shows. I used to want to be an R&B singer. I don't know if anybody like I've recorded and produced like 6 albums. We've done music videos. I've done 160 live shows. I've been on stage in front of thousands of people. I've done talent shows. And so yeah, by the time I think I was like 24, I had lived there about 2.5, 3 years or something. And my grandma fucking kicked me out. She's like, "You're out of here," because it was time.
Yeah, it
And
was time because that healing, that nest part was done.
yeah, and she was very wise, and she knew that. That's when I became terrified, and I got out, and boom, from that moment on, I hustled my ass off. And so fast forward a few years later, I took everything that I had to learn, and I had to basically just face all my fears and lean into the fire. And it was meeting my wife that really, she's like the yin to my yang, bro.
Mm.
And I was able to get my landscape business off the ground, and I replaced the income from my shitty jobs in about 6 weeks. I went all in as soon as I got it to 100,000 a year, just enough to get all the bills paid, basically. I was so obsessed with the internet and marketing and making videos and all that stuff that I had this crazy idea. Oh my God, I'm going to make a YouTube channel about how to start a landscaping business. That's the only thing I'm qualified to talk about. I've read all these books, but I'm just a dude, right? I went crazy, man. I made over 2,000 videos all over YouTube. We've crossed 100 million views online now between like YouTube and my podcast and everything. And I just kept going and going and going, landscaping all day, running the business, shooting the videos all day, editing videos all night, and little by little hiring virtual assistants. And it's been a long, hard path. And because of the success on YouTube, I've gotten invited to speak on stages like all over the country, and I've written books and do all these cool things. And it helped over, I think, quantitatively, if I could count, somewhere around 10,000 businesses my videos have helped or directly or indirectly start. And so I've heard that my videos have helped prevent suicides, people off drugs. I get people emailing me all the time. I have somewhere around another 10,000 testimonials and people, it's insane how many people you can touch when you make videos and you're real, what we call hyper vulnerability, and you share that struggle, that journey, that success, and encourage other people, which my videos have done. And now I want to take it to the whole next level. So that's why I'm going all the way, man. I want to take this thing and help as many people as possible. I feel extremely blessed. The final thing I want to say is when I that time I lived in my grandmother's house, because I remember one night I was looking up the stars in the middle of the night. I was broke, had nothing to my name. I said, God, please, God, I'm asking you right now, let me have abundance. Let me have the money that I dream of so I can finally get and I felt this feeling come over. It could have been in my subconscious mind. I believe it was God for real. It was like, nope, you're not ready for any of it. You're going to have to go through a lot more pain and suffering and struggling. So when you get it, you're mature and you keep it. And it was absolutely true. It took forever, but I've watched my dreams come true. Like I'm the walking, living, talking, breathing example of someone who went through all that shit, which it wasn't even that bad. Now I look back and I've had a lot of awakenings. I'm fond of my childhood, bro. Like I didn't have an actually bad childhood.
Isn't it crazy how while going through it, like you said, you were like ready to get out because you're angry and you're all that. And then now looking back, you're like, man, I would not be who I am today if I wouldn't have gone through that. I wouldn't be the person that has been created. I wouldn't have that part of my journey. It's just, I mean, I got goosebumps just kind of thinking about the journey and the way that you are, because man, just the fact that you can reach back and you can help people that are right in the middle of that. Like you said, you were in the middle of it. You felt like you were completely destitute of any emotion. You're just laying in the bed there. There are people that are out there that are in that exact position, and they're in there and they feel like they just want to give up. And they're like, well, nah, Keith made it through. I know I can. I saw Keith. Keith is doing better now. And I know that Keith went through this. And so man, I am so grateful for you again to share this. Let me end with this, because I always like to give you just one chance. What is the one thing, like the one comment, the one statement that you hope that the people that are listening would just take and internalize and take with them for the rest of their lives? What's that one lesson that you would give to them?
Yeah, man, you're not your past. And if you don't, you can't see a bright future for yourself, get around other people who are living and seeing a bright future. Like, you are who you associate with. I don't care if you got to drive across the country, fly, pay, save up, and be part of membership, mastermind groups, live events. Get around people who have a higher worldview of worthiness, of health, wealth, abundance, prosperity. Especially, I'm Christian, you would call it. I love God. And so get around people and spend less time with people who are toxic and negative, and get really, really clear about healthy boundaries. And the desires that are in your heart are there for a reason, which means I believe that you can achieve them. There's a way. And it's like, you're always like one little tiny corner, like turning around the corner from this whole new, like these, I could talk about it for an hour, but
No, that's awesome. I mean, like, that's exactly what we're looking for. Yeah.
Like, sometimes you'll have a big aha where like 20 dots that you've been waiting 5 years, they all connect, and boom, you level up. Like,
Yeah.
You're almost there, man. I've watched.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how can people find you? I know you said you have the YouTube channel. Maybe spell your name out for those that are just listening to the podcast side of things. That way they can actually find you on YouTube if that's where you want them. Or what other ways can they find and get in touch with you?
Sure. My name is Keith Kalfas, Keith, Kalfas, Kalfas, Keith Kalfas everywhere. Just Google me, Bob up all over YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And then on the Untrapped podcast is my podcast on all podcast platforms. My recent episodes come out every Monday and Thursday. And then I have a new website that I built. I'm doing an experiment. If anybody wants to learn specifically how I did all of this and how I've built a brand online and how I've been able to monetize it, because the money sustains the message, keithkalfas.com/influence, and teaching my marketing progression pyramid.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening. Again, I say this every time, but I mean this from the bottom of my heart. If something was said on this show today, whether I said it, if Keith said it, I don't care who said it, I want you to contact us, reach out, either talk to Keith, reach out and talk to myself, however you do that, because at the end of the day, what drives us is how we leave an impact and how we can help others and watch them grow. And I can promise you this, by you reaching out, you're going to make our day. Just by telling us what has impacted you or what you've changed or what you learned, that's going to make our entire day, week, year. I mean, like, it's just going to totally help us in massive, massive ways. So please reach back out. And again, we're going to have another story coming out next week. Again, thanks, Keith. I appreciate you, man. It has been awesome. And until next time, keep writing your own narrative.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Tim.